Welcome back to Jedi Enclave. I'm Daniel.
I'm Chris.
And this is the next episode, this week's episode,
The
in fact.
current episode.
Yeah, current episode of the Jedi Enclave presents the Now This Is Podcasting podcast, your weekly live podcast about Star Wars and other nerdy things that we enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
This week, The Acolyte, episode 6, which I cannot remember the name of.
I have it down here. Give me one moment. Teach/corrupt.
Yeah, I've noticed all the...
Most of them.
They're all
Most
like...
of them have those double titles.
Hot D, season 2, episode 4, called The Burning Mill.
Okay.
And The Boys, episode 4, season 4, episode 4 or 5.
I think 4.
I've prepared smashingly for this, haven't I?
Whatever.
It's like I did all this preparation and then I did not look at what the episode names were.
Whatever the episode is.
Yeah. Those are things we're going to talk about today. We will be spoiling a bunch of them, but you'll know when there's plenty of time to fuck off if you don't know like what's happening. I shared a link with you about.
Oh, this is our highly abbreviated news segment.
Yeah, because I thought it was interesting and it is important
because the loudest voices on the internet are all screaming about how the Acolyte is terrible and everyone hates it and nobody's watching.
Yeah, but also that like the Rotten Tomatoes page was like famously review bombed, and it has like a 13%, which implies that 87% of everyone agreed on something, which is the most unbelievable thing to me.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that 87% of people would agree that water is good for you.
87% of people wouldn't agree the sky is blue.
Yeah, it's just like no one agrees on in 2024 in today's climate, no one agrees that overwhelmingly on anything unless it's background checks for gun owners or universal healthcare. Anyway, it turns out that I think it was Screen Crush. I should have had this
Screen Rant, maybe?
Or maybe it was Screen Rant. Got an exclusive look at some metrics for Disney Plus viewership, and I have to say ahead of time that all streaming services judge what's going well by weird things, but it turns out, based on this data, that the statement that no one is watching it is a lie. And in fact, it is the second most watched Star Wars property on Disney Plus, out of the shows, I mean.
Yeah.
Behind Ahsoka, which I was surprised that was, or no, not Ahsoka, Obi-Wan. Yeah. Which I was really surprised that Obi-Wan Kenobi was the most viewed one. And then I started thinking about it a little bit. Like Obi-Wan obviously is a fan favorite character, so
it has a lot of hype. It was Ewan fucking McGregor.
Yeah,
like,
I think maybe the reason is because when I enjoyed Obi-Wan while it was happening, and then when I went back and thought about it, it was like,
it's fine.
It's not. It's not fantastic, and there are a lot of reasons why. I don't think any of them were really anyone's fault, other than just we are in the middle of a global pandemic and things were like really bad, and they're trying to put content out. So I just thought it was interesting that the show has better viewership than Ahsoka does, which there were a lot of people that were really into that. This next part is anecdotal.
Okay.
We were talking about the 13% thing. Every time I see a post from like a big presence on social media, or more importantly, like the Star Wars Facebook page, I like to go and look at how their reacts break down. Because on Facebook, you have a wide variety of reacts.
Yeah, you can like it, you can love it, you can scream about it.
Yeah. There for a while, there was a Pride react, and then they got rid of that because they were like, people are using this in very weird ways.
Over.
Yeah. So I've noticed that at the very least, the breakdowns of, because what I usually do is, okay, if someone just like does like a regular like old school 2006 Facebook thumbs up, or a heart react, or one of the other positive ones?
Laughing face.
Well, no,
whatever.
actually, as a rule of thumb, I have like little rules in my head about this, which is an entirely different conversation for some. You could assume that at least a portion of the laugh reacts would be people who are just laughing at something that like they don't necessarily hate it. But as a rule, I give all of those laugh reacts to the negative side.
Okay.
So what I've noticed is that they all break down to about 50-50, right? Mm-hmm. So this like 13% review thing on Rotten Tomatoes is bullshit. Like no one agrees that strongly about anything.
I mean, what's the critic score on Rotten Tomatoes?
It's in the 80s, I think.
Because like that seems more likely to accurately reflect what actual human beings think about it.
Well, I think it 84%.
Okay.
It's I think it accurately represents what critics think of it, and that's a double-edged sword for me because on one hand, and there's no denying this, critics do tend to be kind to certain things if they want a little bit of access, right?
Sure.
It's not something that it's not like Lucasfilm is like, we're going to give you these early pressers. You must give us, or we'll never send it to you again. They're just like, oh, I want Disney to notice that I said something nice about them. Maybe they'll invite me to a swanky party like later or something. And also critics can be really pretentious and will bitch about things that don't really matter that much.
They can definitely sniff their own farts a little bit.
Yeah. So I tend to go, like when I see the critic score, I'm generally like, okay. I do tend to trust it more than the audience score.
I think my point was that actual humans put some amount of critical thinking into that score rather than...
They at least have to write something.
Yeah, rather than, trolls review bombing.
Right. Frankie says, what's up, buddy? Crazy episode. I didn't think it was that crazy.
I thought it was good. I would not call it crazy.
Yeah, it's not my favorite episode so far. We'll get into it when we get into spoilers, or the non-spoilers even. In fact, why don't we just get on with this because we got a ton of shit to talk about. Last night was Star Wars: The Acolyte, episode 6. Let's start off with some spoiler-free thoughts.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I loved this episode. I think it was my second favorite after the one before it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of slower. It's contemplative. There's a lot of like characters just walking and talking rather than action. But there's some fantastic acting performances from Manny Jacinto and Lee Jung-jae.
Lee Jung-jae's performance was my favorite in this episode.
Utterly fantastic.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot to say. I just really liked it because like to go into detail about why I liked it, I would have to go into spoilers.
Sure, yeah.
But if you want to see some really, really good acting, just turn on this episode, watch Lee Jung-jae.
Yeah, he is really fantastic.
There's a couple scenes that he should win awards for.
This episode is kind of a decompression episode because in the last episode we saw
a lot of freaky shit went down.
A lot of Jedi were murdered.
Yeah.
And
some more unexpected than others.
Yes. So we're kind of left with the fallout from that.
Well, shit, where do we go from here? We just killed half the cast.
Right. So I wasn't expecting another big like combat thing. Right. But I appreciate the story development in this episode, and I appreciate the character development. I appreciate seeing a shirtless Manny Jacinto. I don't think
he was more than shirtless.
Oh yeah. Well, we only saw the shirtless part. Yeah, I don't think that's spoiler. Like that's spoilers. I think there are a lot of people that are very excited about Manny Jacinto.
I believe it.
So yeah, there's that. Let's get into spoilers.
Okay.
So this just came out last night.
Yes.
So if you've not had the chance to watch it yet, we're going to spoil it. There's not a ton of stuff to spoil in this one, but there are a couple of things.
There's no crazy reveals, but
there were a couple lines that
some
made
stuff
me think.
That has implications,
right?
For sure.
So if you haven't seen it yet, please go watch it. Come back and let us know what you thought at the end of each of these. By the way, because we're doing Star Wars, House of the Dragon, and The Boys. Yep. At the end of each of these, I'll be reading some of your thoughts on Facebook. That every week I make a post asking for thoughts and theories, and at the end of this, we'll be reading those as well. And if you've not yet, you still have time to put them in there as a live show, or you can just tell us what you thought in the comments, and if we can get to them, we will.
Okay. So, episode 6, Teach/Corrupt. So Osha wakes up and the camera does that
the same Steadicam thing, right? Yeah.
Very cool. So she like checks herself and sees there's this wound in her side that's been bandaged and like she's wearing clothes that are not totally familiar.
I think so some people pointed out that in the last episode when Qimir finds Osha, she has that wound. Wait, are we talking about Osha or May?
Osha.
Because Osha, I can't remember the actual Osha or fake
actual
Osha. Okay, so she's the one with Qimir. You're right. Okay, so when he finds her unconscious, that she's got that wound, and it looks like he just heals it in real time.
Yeah.
But it's not exactly, because it also just could have been the lighting change because she moves.
I think he was doing something with the Force.
Yeah.
There, but.
I was too distracted by the Kylo Ren theme because that's when it happens, where I was like, I wasn't thinking about anything else.
Yeah. So Osha gets up and kind of explores the cave she's in, and she like finds a canteen, drinks some water. She hears something, gets her hackles up. And
I like how she sniffs it first.
Yeah.
Which is a lesson I learned in college.
Is this alcohol?
Because I very famously amongst my friends woke up one morning and went into, I shared an apartment with 3 other men. And I went to the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water and chugged almost half of it before I realized it was vodka. And had to go to class like pretty blitzed.
Yeah.
So like she sniffed. I was like, I get that. I understand that.
So Osha sees this little elephant bug bird thing that kind of hops away. So right next to that, she finds a bag with one of May's knives and some clothes. So she gets dressed and walks out of the cave, holding this knife, and sees this ocean on an island that looks like Skellig Michael, but I don't think it is. I think it's the island from episode 1 where May goes to meet the master.
It is not, because we know what island that is.
Oh.
Okay, so in episode 1, where she meets Qimir, where we see him for the first time, and he very dramatically turns on his lights, because just in case anyone needs to know I'm a bad guy. In material that came out after that, which was something maybe like a data entry on the official Star Wars website, that planet was the same planet where Master Andara died.
Yeah.
Which is,
I forget,
some word or something. I think that if it was that planet, they would just call it that and not unknown planet, which is what they call it in the show.
I think that's from Osha's perspective.
I don't agree. I think that's for fans.
Okay.
Or not for fans, like for people watching the show. And I think that if it was that original one, that they would. It looks a little the same, but I don't think it is. I don't think it's the same one.
So
I do agree about it looking like Octo though. And since we're on this as well, I've seen some fan theories about it being the planet. I can never remember the name of it. This is in my notes somewhere. Baldemnik, which is from the James Luceno Plagueis book.
Okay.
And there's some good evidence for this too. Because in the book, it was a planet that Plagueis took over, Tenebris took over, I think, that had really big cortosis mines on it. And it was a really pretty like beach. It's like the description kind of matches.
Okay.
The thing is, and this is not a huge deal. This isn't to say that it would wreck everything if they changed this part. But the atmosphere is supposed to be really noxious and not actually breathable by anyone, which is why no one ever vacations there. So they would have to change that. But it could also be that planet.
Yeah. Anyway, so opening sequence with the 2 things. And so we are told that this is an unknown planet. Osha walks down to the beach and looks to the side and sees another island off in the sea where there's a ship there. So she looks the other way and sees Qimir walking along the beach with his bag. She immediately gets her hackles up.
He just kind of pretends like he doesn't know she's following him.
So back on Kofar, May and Sol are leaving. Sol gets on the phone, calls the Jedi Tempo and says, "Hey, fucking emergency code 0. My entire team is dead.
Code red.
But the phone's breaking up and the Jedi on the other side can't really hear him. So May,
outside on the ship, a giant jar of jam hits his satellite. He's getting jammed.
So May like walks around the ship and like she's having memories to her testing for the Jedi and all that shit. So Basil's in the background sniffing around.
He has kind of a badass moment.
Yeah,
he tries.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay.
So Sol is still trying to call the Jedi, and May kind of creeps up behind him with a knife in her hand, and Sol's like, "Hey, May," and "Hey, Osha," and May immediately tucks the knife.
Yeah,
away.
he doesn't know it's May yet. Yeah. So, that would have been really funny though. He's like, May, and she's like, shit, how did you know? He's like, I'll be honest, I didn't. I just accidentally called you May.
Yeah. So Sol's like, here, drive. I'm going to go do some technobabble. So Sol goes downstairs and like resets the phone. And while the computer is off, he has a moment where
this performance is so good.
He just kind of leans on the table and like there's so much emotion going through his face. And like he looks sad and like kind of angry for a moment, and it's
he's definitely angry. He slams his fist into the thing. The range this man has surprises me.
Yeah,
because I've seen Squid Games and I liked it. The problem I had with it was that I think I watched the American overdub, and they choose words that kind of they give favor over words that look like the words they're saying over necessarily words that would make the most sense.
Yeah.
And that really threw me off because I was like, oh, this dialogue is like really janky and weird. But I will say that his and a couple of other performances in that show, I wasn't necessarily surprised that he ended up having this much range because he does a really good job in that show as well.
So he kind of collects himself, and like the scene goes for like 20 seconds of just looking at Sol's face and him acting through his emotions.
It's too bad they don't do more of these shots. Yeah. And if the episode was a little bit longer than 25 minutes, when you cut out the previously on in the credits, you could have moments like this where it doesn't matter who's bitching about this show online. They would, I would say they were forced to admit, they never would, but like, you could have something really substantial to dig into because it's like a legit from start to finish, a really good performance.
Yeah. So he reboots the phone and then goes back up to the bridge, and Basil's still sniffing around, and this time he walks out of the little hidey hole he was in and starts banging Pip's head around. So he goes into the workshop and tries to get Pip working again, but
he can't find the right adapter, which is like, oh god,
relatable.
It's like he pretty much has a moment where when you take your flash drive and you plug it in, but it doesn't fit, and then you turn it around and it still doesn't fit, and you're like, what the fuck is wrong with this thing? And then you turn it around and then it fits like the way you had it in the first time.
So like he finally figures it out, and Pip kind of wakes up. So back on Unknown Planet, Osha follows Qimir down to a tidal pool and watches him strip down. and like he like Qimir has some scars, like especially
a very irregularly shaped scar that we're going to talk about.
So Qimir goes swimming, and Osha kind of sneaks up on his clothes with a knife in hand, and she notices his lightsaber, and she sneaks out to grab it, and Chimir's like, "Hey, how's it feel?" Osha's like, "Don't move."
I don't know. You haven't stuck it in yet.
Yeah. Chimir's like, "It feels good, doesn't it? You must have really missed your lightsaber when you left the Jedi." Oh, by the way, that's a really good stance, but you should hold that elbow a little bit higher.
Yeah. It's like that. It's like that when I was a kid and we did golfing in PE, and my PE teacher was like, "Oh, you gotta like do it like this." Yeah. I was like, "Fuck you, I hate golf."
So he starts swimming back to the shore, and Osha's like, "Hey, stay the fuck back." Chimir's like, "Look,
nope, I'm gonna get out of it and going to do full frontal in front of you.
Look, if you're not gonna swim with me, can I at least get dressed?"
By the way, do you think that I got the impression a couple of times during this episode that maybe I have a feeling that Qimir knows that he's really hot, and maybe he's like trying to use that a little bit.
I think
there are a couple of moments of some like, first of all, like just fully showing someone your junk. Like, I mean, that's probably going to help, right? Especially if the junk's good. There are a couple of other moments later on where they get very close and he touches her in a certain way where I'm like, all right.
Yeah. So he gets out of the water, and Osha kind of backs away, and he's like, "Oh, yes. You're wondering if you're justified in killing me like this, hours after the battle ended. But, and now you're probably wondering about how I can read your mind. Well, it turns out that you're really angry, and your emotions are carrying all this to me, and then that's kind of betraying your thoughts." Osha's like, "Okay, so why did you bring me here instead of killing me? Like, am I a prisoner here?" Qimir just sort of puts on his clothes and says, "You're the one with the weapon. Come the fuck on." She's like, "Did you kill Sol?" He says, "No." She said, "Did you kill May?" He's like, "No, but it's interesting that you asked about Sol first. You kind of want, maybe we should explore that a little bit."
She's like, "You're not my fucking therapist, so no."
So it's like, yeah, Sol was your teacher, but there's more than that, right? It's a very special relationship between a master and a pupil. And he just kind of walks away, and Osha watches him for a second and then follows after him. So Sol's ship docks with the hyperspace thing in space, and Sol goes up to join May on the bridge, and May's like, "Yep, we're all set. We can go." And Sol just kind of stands there in front of her for a second, and then pulls her in a really tight hug. And
it's another one of these moments where you're like, God, they like whoever, I don't know who it was. It would have been a casting director or somewhere who was like, "You guys remember when we were all locked away during the pandemic and everyone watched Squid Games? We need to get the guy from Squid Games." Yeah. And then being like, Star Wars?
I have no idea whose idea it was, but it was an inspired choice.
Yeah, it was really good.
So he's like, oh, Osha, you saved us. Like that man corrupted your sister and almost corrupted me. It's time to tell the council everything. I need to confess everything. May's like, everything? And just then the phone rings, and Sol's about to answer when the whole ship's power goes out.
Yeah.
So he
why does this happen again? I assume that the communication thing was probably like May fucked with something.
I don't know. I think the plot just demanded it.
Yeah, which is a very Star Wars thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how someone made a comment on social media earlier today about how they were really bothered by how much time they were on the ship versus how much time it took from Vernestra getting the message to her getting there, which was like in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And it's like hyperspace.
It works however the writers need it to.
Right. And this has been true in Star Wars all over the place.
Yes.
And if you're that upset about it, I implore you not to watch the last couple seasons of Game of Thrones because those characters fucking teleport all over the fucking place and they don't have hyperspace.
So power goes out. Sol turns to May and says, "Hey, you want to go take a look?" And May, who behind her poker face is thinking, "Shit, Osha was a mechanic, wasn't she? Now I have to fake something."
I know nothing about any of this.
May's like, "Yeah, sure.
I think
give me a few minutes. I'll go take a look."
I think we're out of carburetor.
Maybe I need to bypass the compressor.
Yeah, I think we're low on carburetor.
Yeah.
And Sol's like, "Wait a second."
So on Coruscant, Vernestra Rowe is talking to a senator on the phone. They're doing some politics. Apparently, there's this Senator Rayencourt who is trying to put together an external review of the Jedi, and Vernestra is like, that's horseshit. We don't need that.
Which, by the way, yes, you do.
Yeah, they really do. The other senator's like, nah, don't worry about it. It's cool. Like, this is just some dude getting too big for his britches. You'll be fine.
Well, just kill him.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, there'll be an accident.
So the Jedi Sol was talking to on the phone walks in. And Vernestra's like, "Hey, it was great talking to you. Important Jedi business. I gotta go." And she hangs up the phone. So this Jedi is named Moke, and he's like, "Yo, we got a call from Sol. He said his entire team was wiped out, but the connection was really bad. So there's no way that's true, right?" Vernestra thinks for a minute. She's like, "Call him back right now." Moke's like, "Well,
yeah, you didn't at least try to follow up."
Yeah.
Like, I get that it probably doesn't seem reasonable, but if I heard the words "my entire team is dead," even if I thought it was a mistake, I would call back and be like, "I'm sorry, but I thought I heard you say, you didn't mean that, right?"
Right. Yeah.
Fucking Moke, dude.
So he's like, "We've lost contact." Vernestra's like, "All right, put together a rescue team, send him to Kofar." He's like, "How do you know where they are?" He's like, "I sent him there. No, get the team together. Let's go."
Why are you asking all these fucking questions?
So Qimir and Osha are still walking on the beach, and Osha's like, you sound like you know an awful lot about the Jedi. And Chimir's like, "Yeah, I used to be one a long time ago."
This was a little bit of a surprise. Not a huge surprise
Not
for
really.
the character.
Like,
I'm a little surprised that he used to be a Jedi.
Well, the way Qimir was talking to Soul in the last episode, like he was very clearly implying that Soul used to be his teacher, I thought.
I didn't think that at all. You would think that he would recognize him. Why don't you get to the...
I thought
why don't
he
you
did.
get to... Well, I thought he said he looked familiar. But he couldn't like quite...
Well, I'm thinking of the line where Soul says, "What kind of master hides their face from their student?" And Qimir's like, "You tell me." Like that implies a lot of knowledge.
I have another idea about that as well. Now that we have new information, why don't we get to the line that actually like the big line in this because we need to talk about it.
Sure. So she's like, "Well, I never fucking heard you." And Qimir's like, "Yeah, it was a really long time ago."
Okay. This is weird because Qimir looks like fucking
30, maybe?
Like a hot 30.
Yeah.
Like a really hot 30. For him to have been a Jedi way before Osha, he would have to be way older than he looks, right?
It's also possible we're just completely off in guesstimating his age. Because like we know Osha is what, 24?
There's no way Qimir is older than 35. Alexa, how old is Manny Jacinto? He's 36. There's no way. So I have a couple thoughts about this. I think people weighed in because I think they're weirded out by this as well. The first thing that it reminded me of was we know about the whole Palpatine transferring his essence to another body or whatever. So there's a little bit of that, but also in the Darth Bane trilogy, there's a whole plot thing about transferring consciousnesses into a new body that they're exploring. And it also kind of reminded me of the whole, Darth Plagueis being able to cheat death thing. So they could be messing around with the Sith messing around with immortality. So maybe he's found a way to extend his life quite a bit longer.
It could be simpler than that. It could be a combination of Qimir's just fucking lying.
He could just age really well, I guess.
He could age really well. We know the Jedi have multiple different temples at this point in the time. Like it's possible that he was just not trained on Coruscant, and that's why she never heard of him.
Yeah, we need to get to a certain line of dialogue, but I think I know who his teacher was.
Okay. So continuing, Osha's like, "Well, why did you bring me here?" He's like, "Well, why do you think?" Osha says, like, "If you keep me here, Soul will find me. He's very strong in the Force." And Qimir's like, No. You got it backwards. Like, you're the strong one. Soul can find you because you are strong.
Yeah.
Someone really ought to teach you that. Like, also, you can leave anytime you want. The ship's right there. If you start swimming, you can get there by sundown. You'll be fine. Or, we can, go back in the cave and eat something like civilized people.
And then we could fuck.
And Osha, turns to look at the ship and, she thinks about just swimming out there. But
like, shit, I don't know how to swim.
I was living in...
Can't swim. No.
Oh, no. And they go back in the cave. So May steps into the engine room and very obviously has no fucking clue what she's doing.
Yeah.
She tries poking at
she's got a YouTube video open on her phone, trying to figure out
how to fix spaceship. Before she can do anything, this hatch opens and Basil comes out, starts doing these kung fu poses.
He commits.
Yeah. He commits to the bit.
Yeah. And he goes for it. And I like how her first response was, "What is happening?"
Hey, fucking stop it. Knock it off.
Also, imagine this from May's perspective, right? She has no idea who Basil is.
Yeah.
And
she's never seen this guy in his life.
Well, yes, she has. Her one run-in is when she fell into the spores and looked up and he was just standing there looking at her and then disappears.
Yeah.
It's so imagine
he screams at her and then disappears.
So imagine May's this guy again? What the fuck? Yeah, he had a nice little kick in there too.
Yeah, he stomps on her foot. She's like, fucking knock it off.
It's the one thing that actually hurts her.
Yeah. So she turns and Pip shoots some oil into her.
Yeah, everyone's all of a sudden real pissed at May because he figures. He knows immediately it's not actually Osha.
He was sniffing. He knows that she's
no, the droid. I mean,
yeah,
but Pip immediately was like, "Oh fuck no."
I'm assuming Basil just talked to Pip. about it.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Also, the thing is, I wish they would pick a lane with Basil. Like, so he's a species from Legends, but they're like hyper intelligent.
Yeah.
And he's adorable. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
He's kind of a moron.
A little bit, yeah.
I mean, he had to have known. Like, that was a really sweet fucking attempted crescent kick. I'll give him that. But he could not have thought it was going to be effective, right?
He's doing his best, man. So, like, May grabs Pip and is like, you motherfucker. See how you like it if I do a factory reset on you.
Just like a fucking iPhone. Press the two buttons at the same time and everything,
Which, by the way, is eradicating this droid's sentient brain.
I have in my notes, the exact thing I said was...
May just killed another guy.
The idea of resetting Pip to factory settings is horrifying.
Yes.
Because as we have been able to repeatedly establish, droids in the Star Wars universe are sentient. That is crazy, first of all, that they're used as slaves, but also the fact that in the power of you knowing what buttons to press, you just erase their consciousness. That's fucking horrifying.
That's incredibly fucked up. But once he's formatted, she's like, okay, now fucking fix the power system, because I don't know how. So back in the cave, Osha asks Qimir, like,
she connects him to his like body too.
Yeah.
Which apparently they had a bunch of droid carcasses
had a bunch
back there, and she found the one that fit. That was also like a little weird.
So back in the cave, Osha asks, what the fuck do you mean about the Force? Like, all Jedi know that, like, you have to exercise the Force. It's like a muscle. If you don't keep working at it, it goes away. Qimir's like, yeah, sure. That's what they told you. All right. Like, they teach you that there's only one way to the Force, and that if you don't work on it, you lose it. But there's another way. Like, just give in to your emotions, and you'll have great power. Osha's like, that's the path to the dark side. Qimir's like,
I was told explicitly not to do that.
Qimir's like, semantics. It's just what they say. Osha's like, you murdered my friends. Qimir's like, no, I killed a bunch of Jedi who threatened my existence. It's like, you killed Yord. It's like, yeah, dude, the guy who did not hesitate for a microsecond to turn you in for a crime you did not commit.
Also, he was a moron.
Yeah. He's like, you killed Jecki. He's like,
that's my bad. That's my bad.
Let's be real for a second. Like, how did you think that was going to end up?
Yeah, like, I like how they do a soft confirmation there that Osha was crushing on Jecki a little bit.
Yeah. Like, it would have been just like your relationship with Soul. It would have been completely one-sided. Like, why do you keep loving people who can't love you back?
Yeah. Well, however, I mean, Jecki wouldn't have been able to love her back because she was a Jedi. But I'm pretty sure the feelings were like she also kind of was crushing on Osha a little bit.
Osha's like, I am not my sister. I am not that easily corrupted. And she just walks out. So Qimir follows her and he's like, aren't you forgetting something? Like, you stayed to do something, so fucking go ahead. He because she's still holding the lightsaber. So he grabs it, like holds it up to his chest. And he's like, go ahead, turn it on. Fucking kill me. Do it. Osha's like, a Jedi does not attack the unarmed. And Qimir's like, why are you thinking about yourself as a Jedi? That's very interesting. She's like, look, they didn't fucking fire me. Like, let me back up. Why do you think of yourself as a Jedi when they didn't want you? Osha says, they didn't fire me. I quit. He's like, are you sure about that? He's like, fucking let me go. He's like, you have all this anger and negative emotion. Like, that is who you are. The Jedi knew about that, and that's why they kicked you out. Osha's like, they didn't kick me out. He's like, then why aren't you a Jedi? Why aren't you a Jedi, Osha? Osha's like, because I failed. And then lights the saber and like pins him up against the rock. And like, so if she actually meant to kill him, she could have just turned it on without doing the swinging and all that. So like, I just want to talk about this for a second. Like, Qimir absolutely knows exactly what he's doing. Like, he had this whole thing planned out.
Yeah. It's very Sithy kind of a thing. I think he's using a lot of different strategies. Yep.
A lot of different ways to manipulate.
I think he's trying a little bit of the sexy. He's like, let's see if if she notices my nipples. He's doing a lot of that famous Sith thing where they tell half truths about things. They put enough truth into something where, I mean, it's a form of gaslighting.
The tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise.
Yeah, or Count Dooku with the Sith Lord is running the Senate. Like there's undeniable truth
technically,
there.
yes.
Yeah. I don't think anyone realized he meant it so literally, right? In fact, they didn't believe him at all. They just thought he was lying, which is a response that OSHA has, which is, oh, that like this isn't true, or oh, you're wrong about this, right? I'm curious to know what Qimir's obsession with the two of them is, because he went from May to OSHA really quick.
Yeah. So we know from the flashback episode that May and OSHA were deliberately created, like that they weren't natural children.
So they claimed.
Yes. Like there was some forcey stuff going on there. And we also know from elsewhere in lore that Anakin was not a natural child. Like Shmi says, there was no father. She was just pregnant one day.
Or she's just really religious and doesn't want anyone to know that she banged outside of marriage.
One or the other. But if we're taking her at her word here, that sort of connection between the twins and Anakin implies that the twins might have similar-ish force potential to Anakin. Anakin, who is famously one of the most powerful Jedi ever.
Yeah, I saw some things that I could shit on The Rise of Skywalker probably all day. There is no changing the lore that's established, and so we it is what it is. Yeah. It would make sense that the two of them could be dyads in the Force.
Sure.
And Palpatine really liked finding out that like Ben and Rey were dyads, because it was like, it was like having a fucking, battery.
Yeah, he got his fingers back.
It's like, oh, my little sausages are back. Yeah. So like there could be something like that too, where they're, because of the circumstances of their birth, that, it would be interesting to know that if you are conceived in that way, if you're like automatic, like if something happens, I don't know. We don't know how it works yet. But I thought it was interesting that he's like, well, I can't have May, so I'll have OSHA. I think that, well, especially with how the episode ends, I think it's working.
Yes.
Like his,
absolutely.
Yeah. And I bet it's because he's hot.
At least in part, sure.
Because I've got a really strong sense of morality. I'm a humanist.
Yeah.
If Manny Jacinto came up to me shirtless and was like, or you could murder a bunch of people, I'd be like, fuck yeah.
Murder sounds good.
Yeah, let's do it.
I think he's trying all these different things to see what works, and he thinks he's onto something, because like OSHA is someone who's kind of starved for love. Like she loves other people a ton, like Soul.
Well, yeah, she was in a cult that told her she couldn't form attachments to things. Yeah.
And like I think,
and she was surrounded by people who couldn't form attachments to her. Yeah.
Despite Soul pretty clearly wanting to, if you take his interactions with May in this episode.
I have a feeling that when in one of the previous episodes, after they rescue OSHA, Saul and OSHA have this exchange. It's after OSHA wakes up and he tells her what happens. And he seems so positively bereft about something. And I think we're going to find out it's because something insane happened that he is directly responsible for. I have a feeling that Saul's one of those guys that probably like knows that he's not supposed to form those attachments, but he just does anyway.
He's doing it anyway. Yeah. So anyway, OSHA has Qimir pinned against the rock. She has the lightsaber at his neck, and Chimir's like, I get it. Like, I lost everything, but when you lose everything, that's when you're finally free. And OSHA just kind of gazes into his eyes for a few seconds and then backs off. So back on Coruscant.
Did he mention the power of two thing yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
We're getting there. So back on Coruscant, Vernestra goes to find Moke, and he still hasn't heard from Soul, but the rescue team is ready to go. So Vernestra's like, all right, cool, I'm going with you. Moke is like, are you sure? Like, you get nauseous when you go through hyperspace.
Did you understand this reference?
I don't think so.
Okay. So you, like, why would they tell you about Vernestra's hyperspace sickness?
Why would they?
First of all, it's not sickness, like she says, because she says,
I don't get sick. I find it unsettling.
Right. It's because in the High Republic books, Vernestra Rowe, sees visions when she goes into hyperspace.
Oh.
And the Jedi were supposed to have, like they were supposed to have taught her how to block those out. Because some of them, a lot of them would come true, but like some of them wouldn't.
Yeah.
And so it was like hard for her to tell what was what. And the Jedi were definitely like, that's not a thing you should be fucking with anyway.
Yeah.
Like the whole like trying to see into the future thing is not, it's not that great. So
always in motion, the future is.
So I thought it was a neat little deep cut to the books. Yeah, it serves no purpose to the plot whatsoever. It's just a neat little. If you read these books, this is for you.
So Mocha's like, look, the casualties are surely because the planet's completely uncharted. Vanessa's like, look, I need to handle this personally. Suck my light whip, and she walks past him to the ship. So Basil is skittering through the ship while May is kind of following him from the human-sized walkways, and Sol calls out to her, calls her and says, Osha. And May walks up and says, yeah, I ran a diagnostic and
I refilled the carburetor.
The thing.
Yeah.
It'll just be a few minutes. And Sol like doesn't respond at first. And then he's like, how did I not sense what Qimir was the very first time I met him?
Mm-hmm.
May is like, well, sometimes when you really want something, it can cloud your mind and you see what you want to see. Sol's like, you found your pip droid. May's like, oh, yeah. He's doing fine.
Mm-hmm.
Totally didn't just erase his memory or anything.
Just don't ask him any questions about the last several years of his life because he won't remember.
So I was like, I see the way you love and care about him, even though he's just a machine, which is also pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
May's like, yeah, I've always been like that, even when I was a kid. I had to lose a lot of myself to be a Jedi, even if I didn't realize it at the time. Sol says, I'm sorry you felt that way. And May's like, how else could I feel about it? And by the way, have you told me what really happened on Brendock yet?
He gives her such a non-apology apology.
Yeah.
He's like, well, I'm sorry that's the impression you got.
Yeah.
When it's like, bitch, that's what happened.
So I was like, look, Brendock, you were just a kid. May's like, well, I'm not anymore, so fucking spit it out. Just then, the ship boots up, and, May goes up to the cockpit and calls the Jedi on the phone. Before she can say her name, Sol stuns her. And he walks into the bridge with Basil, chittering behind him. He's like, oh, May, did you really think that was going to work?
So what do you think gave her away?
The
droid, maybe?
What the implication I took
the
was
dialogue
that Basil told Sol.
Oh. And then he had that whole conversation with her knowing that it was May?
Either before or after that conversation, Basil told Sol what was going on.
Or like maybe he whispered it to Sol as she's like going to the cockpit or something. Yeah. I do like how he's just like, what? I'm not fucking with this anymore. I'm just going to shoot her with a stun gun.
Fucking May, dude.
It's also like, talk about Chekhov's stun gun throughout this entire series.
So Jay on the phone is like, hey.
Yord would have been so proud of Sol.
Yeah.
He's like, finally someone got stunned. Thank God.
So Jay on the phone is like, hey, Sol, we got help coming. Just stay there, leave your radio on, and Sol just shuts the radio off and takes the ship into hyperspace immediately before the other Jedi ship shows up.
Yeah, so he's got to set everything right.
Yeah,
that's his thing, right?
Mm-hmm. He's got to fix it.
This, of course, is gonna paint him in a certain light, as we're gonna find out here in a minute. I think he's starting to come unraveled a little bit,
just a little bit.
Yeah, and I wonder if the eventual reveal will be that May doesn't end up being the Acolyte, Osha doesn't end up being the Acolyte, but Sol ends up being the Acolyte. Yeah.
That would be quite the thing.
That he finally having to reconcile what he did, maybe the Jedi's response to it. Like maybe he tells the High Council what happened. Because something terrible happened,
yes.
Right? And I think the next episode is we're going to find out exactly what. If he tells the High Council and they're just like, don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
This would look very bad for us.
Just keep it on the DL.
And for him just to be like, what?
Excuse me?
Yeah. Like there's like something like just breaks in his mind and he's, so I think it would be a huge twist, and it would work well because the way that he's acted the part so far, you feel this anger under the surface that he's holding back.
Yeah.
But he's such a sweet face and he's such a warm person that you're just like, oh, it's Sol.
Yeah.
So like it would be a really effective twist for him to like that So you have like the sweet, warm side of Saul, and you have the part of him that's just like it's been something he's been holding back for years and years, and his guilt has just festered into something else, and like that's the angel, or that's the devil on his shoulder that wins out, right?
Could be. So Vernestra's team lands and asks around, and Moke says, yeah, there's like last night an Umbramoth colony hatched, and that could have killed a bunch of Jedi.
I think Vernestra's like, you think? Do you really think that's what happened?
Vernestra's like, maybe. No, let's go fucking see Kilnaka.
She's like, you're fucking fired.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to investigate crimes anymore.
So in the cave, Qimir is welding and fixing up his smiley mask while Osha is sitting there with a bowl of whatever. She's like,
space soup.
Yeah. She's like, did you give May the same sales pitch? And Chimir's like, yeah, I made a mistake with her. Like, I thought she wanted something other than revenge. He says, I thought she wanted what I wanted, not just revenge. Osha's like, well, what do you want? Qimir says the power of two, which there's two ways to take this, I think. Number one is the callback to the witches with their power of one, power of two, power of many.
I think that's the thread that catches Osha's attention. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's how he means it.
What the other thing is the Sith rule of two.
I think that's what he means.
Yeah.
And I think that him saying it that way catches Osha's attention.
Yeah, I think he phrased it very deliberately.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because I'm sure that he knows about all that shit.
Yeah, he absolutely heard about it from May, even if he wasn't there for any firsthand knowledge of it. So he lifts up his shirt a little bit and shows her the scar on his back, and Osha's like, how'd you get that?
Why are you always showing me skin? God damn, dude.
Qimir's like, well, how do you think I got this scar? Osha's like, well, it looks like someone stabbed you in the back. And Qimir says, yeah, someone who threw me away.
Yeah.
Osha's like, you're Jedi Master? And Qimir doesn't answer that, which has some implications.
Also a very Sith thing to just, lie by omission, or just tell the truth by like a, with a look.
Yeah.
Did you notice the shape of the scar on his back?
It's sort of like S-shaped kind of.
Yeah. It's not a typical looking wound.
Yeah. So after a few seconds, it says, hey, check out my cool mask. Like, it's made of cortosis.
Yep.
It blocks lightsabers, but it also blocks out all your senses. So it's just you, the Force, and whatever you bring with you, which is a callback to Yoda and the cave. The cave,
sure. Yeah. It's worth pointing out too. This is just a part of the what fucking planet are they on mystery. That when she's looking around for her stuff, she has a good look at the cave, and there are cortosis veins.
Yeah, this is actually at the end of this scene, I think. Like,
was it? It wasn't before.
No, it's later. Like, this mask, it's pretty neat. You should try it on. I was just like, I don't fucking trust you, creeper. And Qimir's like, well, you shouldn't trust me, but you should trust yourself.
You shouldn't trust me, but you should also put the mask on.
Yeah.
It would be a fucking rad time.
So let me just put this mask down right here.
Yeah, unattended.
Very clearly tempting you, and walk away.
I'm going to walk away. You better not put that mask on. Yeah.
And he walks away, and Osha just kind of looks at this mask, and like, there's wheels turning in her head here.
She's like, oh, I'm going to put that motherfucker on.
Yeah. So Vernestra's team finds Jeki's corpse. Like the scene opens on Jeki's corpse.
It's jarring.
It's brutal.
And it hurts.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm talking about, man. This is what we're talking about. When no one ever dies in Star Wars, right? Like,
here's a fucking 16-year-old girl.
Like, this is why they should leave people dead, because like it's
effective.
It's a very like visceral response you have to it. 'Cause you're like, shit. Like, imagine if they could have done two things. They could have done that, or they could have done she survived and crawled away thing, and she's fine. Like, this was way more jarring. It was way more horrific. I like she clearly has lightsaber wounds, and like Mog's like, maybe the moths did it.
Happened?
Maybe the moths got a lightsaber. I don't know.
So like Jeki's there, Yord's broken neck is there, all the rest of the dead Jedi are there. So Vernestra's team.
Yeah, Yord's not having a good time.
And like Vernestra is walking around, she's like hearing echoes of the past through the Force, and Moke is like, well, Osha and May aren't here. They must have survived somehow. And by the way, holy shit, what happened here? Vernestra's like, well, what do you think happened, dumbass?
Use your fucking eyes. Yeah. What do you think happened?
Moke is like, okay, there was an explosion and then a battle. It was one against all of them, and he must have been really fucking strong and possessed of extremely buff arms. and was very determined to leave no survivors. So, like, while he's talking, an Umber Moth wakes up, and Vernestra, like, pulls out her light whip without even turning, like, whips it behind her, cuts this thing.
Does an Indiana Jones.
Yeah. Turns it off, puts it back on. And, like, in all that time, Moke has time to, like, put his hand on his lightsaber and then just, like, casually take it away.
You know what? I let you have that one.
Yeah.
I noticed it.
I let you.
I noticed it, but I wanted to see you use light whip. Okay, so now that we've seen the light whip.
Yes. So Vernestra's like, they're all killed by lightsaber wounds. What does that tell you? And Moke is like, well, obviously a powerful Jedi has fallen, but that couldn't be Soul, right? Vernestra's like, that is quite the accusation you are making there, sir.
I like that they, like, right out of the gate, we know that Vernestra doesn't buy the soul theory. Like, she's like, nah, that's not what happened. There's something. Vernestra knows something I don't think that anyone else knows, and for some reason, I think she's keeping it to herself. Okay, she goes on to say, like, right after this,
from the very first time we meet Vernestra in this episode, she's very clearly thinking about politics, right? She's always thinking about the Jedi's.
Yeah, I think that's a part of her job. I think.
I think it's more than that. I think she really earnestly believes the Jedi should be above reproach because they do what's best for the Republic and for the Force.
That's not the impression I get at all. The parallel I see with Vernestra, she says the same thing in two different episodes in this one as well, where she says something to the effect of something to tip the scales or whatever. And the first time she said it even felt like this. Felt like a parallel to Mace Windu in episode 3 saying, I sense a plot to destroy the Jedi. I think that's what she's thinking about.
Okay.
And I think that she knows something, or maybe she had a vision or something.
Or suspects something.
I think she thinks that something is cooking that no one knows about, and only she, like, has thought about it.
Yeah. Well, Moke's like, well, you know, who else would be powerful enough to kill all these Jedi? And Vernestra thinks for a moment and says, you know, something to tip the scales. And Moke is like, well, wait a minute. If Soul did this, why would he call for help? And Vernestra is like, okay.
He didn't do it. That's why, you dumb shit.
Obviously. We're going to bury these bodies and then go back to the ship.
Yeah. Okay. So now that you've seen Vernestra's whip, what shape wound do you think that would create?
I see where you're going with it.
And like, this is not necessarily an original idea. I did notice the shape. I did notice it was a weird shape.
Yeah.
I think the common fan theory right now is that Qimir was Vernestra's apprentice.
Okay.
Now, it does not make sense that she would inflict a wound on him like that through her teaching him, because that's not who she is.
It's not Jedi.
Yeah. Right? And we know enough about Vernestra from the High Republic books. Despite whatever politics she's gotten herself into or whatever, she's a good guy. Like, she's a good guy, right? So if that is the case, what I imagine probably happened is there was a confrontation. Like, maybe he, maybe it was like a Ben Solo thing.
Yeah.
Where, like, he already had some darkness in him, or maybe maybe the Sith got their talons in a little bit and there was a confrontation and she did it. Like, she inflicted that wound but
he got away.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe. So May wakes up and she's, like, handcuffed to the bed in the ship, and Soul is just kind of watching her from across the room. He's like, just chill the fuck out. I have no intention of hurting you, May, who I'm just telling you that I know who you are.
I figured it out, bitch.
May.
I figured it out.
May is like, then fucking let me go. Soul's like, I will, because we have a lot to do. We have to find your master and save Osha. But first, we need to talk. Like, I had 16 years to think about what I was going to say to you if I ever saw you again.
Such a non-Jedi line, by the way. Because that is not what a Jedi does.
No, they're supposed to let things go.
Yeah, they do not fester about something for 16 years.
Yeah. He's like, so you're going to fucking listen to me while I work out my trauma. Then we cut to black, and we would roll credits, except there's another scene.
Yeah.
So we zoom in on the smiley Cortosis mask, and Osha sits down next to it and sort of runs her fingers over it, And this is when she looks up and sees that vein of cortosis in the cave wall. So she like puts both her hands on his mask. Like she's just tempted by it, and she like picks it up and puts it on, and like you can hear her breathing heavily. She can see through some very narrow cracks in the metal.
I think we're supposed to get some Darth Vader, Kylo Ren vibes from this,
maybe a little bit,
like the sound of the breathing and stuff.
Yeah, she closes her eyes and breathes one last time, and then the credits roll.
Yeah, which we knew she was like.
The whole point of this episode was that she was tempted by the dark side.
I like how she's like, oh yeah, I'm putting that motherfucker on, and just puts it on.
So cool.
Yeah. Yeah. There are the obvious things in this episode that have me thinking mostly about the planet that they're on, because if it's not Baldemnik, it's almost certainly Octo.
Maybe.
And I think it would be a really interesting, because we know that like in The Last Jedi, like there wasn't just the Jedi Temple there. Like there was darkness there as well. So it would be interesting to know if there's some lore there about maybe why the Jedi Temple, the first Jedi Temple ever was built there or whatever. People pointed out that there were no porgs.
Yeah.
That would have given it away.
Yeah.
Like
sure.
very quickly. We did get the little like
the elephant things.
So the first thing we were watching this last night, my partner John was like, is that one of those like big things that Luke milks in The Last Jedi? And I was like, wait, rewind it?
No way. Surely.
It's not, because they show two adults and a little one, right? But the snout kind of looks similar, so I was like, oh, okay, but no, it's not that. Let me read some comments real quick from our chat, and then we're gonna read some comments from some of you that weighed in earlier on social media. So if you're watching now, if you're watching live, here's your chance to get those fucking comments in. Do it. Do it. Chris says, may the force be with you, Daniel and Chris. Hope you're having a good night. I'm really enjoying the Acolyte, and I'm liking the new Sith villain. This is also something I should probably mention, that in the time between the last episode and this episode, Manny Jacinto referred to himself and to his character Qimir as a Sith Lord. I know that there's a lot of contention about what his character actually is. And I understand why, because they purposefully put the Kylo Ren theme in. The mask looks like a Knights of Ren mask. It really does. Yeah. Even Ren's mask in The Rise of Kylo Ren, the guy that Ben ends up killing, is a sensory deprivation looking thing, right?
Which, by the way, just kind of adds to Qimir's badassness even more.
He just couldn't see anything.
He couldn't see anything, couldn't hear anything. All he had was the Force, and he killed all those Jedi.
Yeah. Now let's talk quickly about what we know about the Knights of Ren.
Okay. They're a bunch of fucking posers.
They're kind of morons.
Yes.
They have to do everything together because they're not strong enough individually to do anything. And Qimir is plenty strong enough individually to do anything he wanted. Yeah. So maybe it ends up being the case that he starts the Knights of Ren, or maybe one of his acolytes starts it. Or maybe Osha starts the Knights of Ren or something.
Maybe.
But he did in an interview refer to Qimir as a Sith Lord. So I'm pretty sure we're meant to,
He's not lying about that.
Right. I think Qimir was the apprentice of Vernestra. He said Vernestro, but I knew she meant. Yeah. I agree with that. Julius says Qimir is venomous. I saw you comment about this, and it would be an interesting notion. So venomous was one of Tenebrus's like side pieces, like Sith side pieces, who ended up not making it. They would have to change his species for this to work, which is not that big of a deal. Because I'm pretty sure someone's species is going to get changed on the Sith side, either Tenebrus or Plagueis or something. So like that's fine or whatever. It's entirely possible. It could be. I'm not sure that the showrunners are going that deep into. It's the same reason why I don't think that. But before we knew it was Qimir, there's a character from the Legends New Jedi Order series called Abeloth. And Abeloth has been like do you remember when we were watching Agatha all along, and we were just waiting for Mephisto to show up out of nowhere?
Mephisto!
Yeah, everything is Mephisto. Abeloth has become the Star Wars Mephisto a little bit, where they're like, oh, it's Abeloth. And it's not. I don't think that they're cutting that deep into stuff. But it very well could be. I mean, it's too early to know.
I don't think that it matters necessarily, like for the story they're trying to tell.
That's also true. Casey says Vernestra is not the same character from the High Republic to myself, regardless of how messed up the things she's gone through. Every scene with her paints her as a very worst kind of Jedi you would imagine, rivaling Mace. I think that she's been pulled into the worst part of being a Jedi, which is
the fucking politics.
Yeah, they're supposed to be keepers of the peace. They're supposed to be Qui-Gon Jinn. And what they've ended up becoming is Yoda, more or less.
Yeah.
Right. And I know everyone loves Yoda, and I love him too. But Yoda is one of the prime reasons that the Jedi fell.
The Yoda everyone loves is the one in Empire Strikes Back, where he's quirky and funny weird, and like has learned from his mistakes.
Yeah.
The like prequel Yoda is kind of a dick.
He's also, I mean, he has a lot of flaws. I'm going to pull up some other comments real quick. I have to scroll through my feed. Here we go. Oh yeah, it's the shirt. This I was like, I'll be able to find it in the feed with a picture of shirtless Qimir. Joe says, please tell me I'm not the only one who heard a mixture of Kylo Ren and Darth Vader breathing when she put on the mask, which, by the way, was a perfect way to end the episode. I thought it was a really effective end of the episode. Kelvin says Qimir is much older than he looks. Osha says she has no memory of him in the Order. Qimir says it was a really long time ago. Casey says, I had numerous logical issues with this episode and found it a bit dull. I kind of agree with that. I wasn't expecting, like I said, a crazy, like, because we just had one. But I kind of agree there.
I was too enthralled by the performances, honestly.
I think that's the thing that saved it for me. Yeah. He says, I found the dialogue one or two steps above prior episodes, which is a positive thing he's pointing out. I'm looking forward to seeing where the budget went in episode 8. I keep hoping to feel a particular way when the episodes are done, but the show hasn't left me, I think, feel a way about the way the others have. Oh, well, I just started reading Temptation of the Force yesterday, and a new awesome Star Wars novel is like crack to me. That is, yeah. Jimmy says, I enjoyed the episode, but I heard for last week's episode, they purposefully used Kylo Ren's theme, which is interesting. So it makes me wonder, is Qimir the first ever Knight of Ren? It would just be Ren. That's what he called him. The leader of the Knights of Ren was Ren. And 100 plus years later, Ben Solo learns this, and that's how he gets the helmet design.
It is a very interesting use of that music cue, because like it's not subtle. Like they use the entire thing.
It's not something that kind of sounds like Kylo Ren's theme. It is literally Kylo Ren's theme. Yeah. Our buddy Monty that we play Battlefront with says, Qimir, little cutie. This will be the last one, but I found this really interesting. Micah says, I'm intrigued about Vernestra's line, something to tip the scales. Seems pretty clear that Qamir's scar is not from a traditional lightsaber, since I'm pretty convinced he was Vernestra's apprentice. Also, David Harwood was cast in the show, but hasn't shown up yet. Dude absolutely screams big bad. And seeing the picture of him, I kind of agree. So it'd be interesting to know what his part in this. I think now that we've seen the light whip thing, we've exhausted all of the trailer footage except for Kalnaka going apeshit with his lightsaber. So the rest of it is who the fuck knows.
There's 2 episodes left.
Which one was this?
This was 6.
Yeah, 2 episodes left. Yeah, that is correct. All right. Another thing that happened this last week.
Hot D.
Yeah, Hot D. The House of the Dragon, which has been I mean, don't get me wrong. I've been really, really enjoying The Acolyte, but there is something about House of the Dragon that has just like enchanted me. I just cannot get enough of it. Let's do spoiler free on this real quick. Go ahead.
I feel like I'm repeating myself every week, but like it's just also good. Like from the
I have a big gripe about this one.
From the performances to the music to the like little things like costume design, like the way.
Do you watch any of the behind the scenes? Because after every episode, HBO on YouTube will release a couple of behind the scenes looks at the episode. And like there's armor that Aegon wears in this episode where they talked about it for like a whole 5 minutes about how they built it and they made it look like Valyrian steel and like the craftsmanship that goes into this show is fucking bonkers. There's a whole thing at Harrenhal. They built most of that interior and just have it raining inside like that shit's real, you know. And this is one of those things where like this is why you have real sets and you don't film on the volume, because you know that it's a real person in a real place and it feels real, right? I have a gripe so there's a, you know what, I'm gonna save it for when we get into spoilers.
I think I know what you're griping about, but I'll hold on to that.
Okay, so
in case I'm wrong.
House of the Dragon, The Burning Mill, episode 3. We're going to spoil it. If you've not seen it yet, go watch it. Come back. Tell us what you thought. Okay. Everyone's warned. So cold open on the Blackwells and the Brackens, who famously for all of eternity hate each other, right? You might remember that when Rhaenyra was hearing petitions for her hand in marriage, there was the little boy that just murks this other guy. The little boy's a Blackwell. The guy he kills is a Bracken.
Okay.
Right? So these guys have beef that has been cooked up for a long time. Now, also, there was a lot of confusion with this first sequence because the actor that plays Davos Blackwell, who's the other guy, posted a picture of his character on social media, and everyone jumped to conclusions and thought that he was Benjamin Blackwood, who is an entirely different character. And everyone jumped to that conclusion because he looks like that character, right?
See, this is why you don't go on social media. I didn't know any of this happened, and I was not confused at all.
Right. So, I am blissfully ignorant about everything.
Yeah, exactly.
It is worth pointing out, by the way. I've not read Fire and Blood. Like I don't know anything that happens really in that book. Though I've seen a bunch of people talk about Benji Blackwood, and apparently when they end up bringing him in, people are going to love him because he's a little psycho.
Okay, great.
Which I really thought it was him because the dude kind of looks like a psycho. So they're having a dispute over you move the rocks.
This rock.
Yeah. And now your cows are eating my grass, and you know, and then they just like next shot is the Bracken guy, his own sword through his his fucking neck and everything, dead bodies everywhere.
Slowly zooms out. I love this sequence because it shows just how stupid war is, especially like two people are arguing over a rock.
Yeah.
And like their families have been at each other's throats for so long, no one even remembers why. I think
that's the cautionary tale, is that this is where Team Black and Team Green are headed. And that they've been fighting for so long that they don't know why. They're just fighting.
They don't know why. There's this stupid provocation and hundreds end up dead.
Yeah. And the Blackwells even have dragons.
Yeah. Also, there's a mill burning in the background of this shot.
Hence the episode. It's because in the book, it's the Battle of the Burning Mill. The thing that I got pissy about is like, show us the fucking battle. This is like in season 1.
I don't think they needed to.
I think they did.
I think they made their point that this is so stupid. Like,
I wanted to see the battle. And I'll tell you what it reminds me of. In season 1, in season 2, when Rob decides he's going to wage war against the crown, there is this famous battle in the book, the Battle of Whispering Wood. They didn't have the budget to show the battle. So Rob is like, oh, we're going to go into Whispering Wood. It's going to be a big battle. Next scene, he comes back. He's like, we won. We didn't have the budget for it, but we won. You just had to trust me. We did a really good job. We won the battle. That's what it felt like a little bit. And it would have been nice to see a little bit of action.
I feel like this battle, like to the story they're telling, this battle is so inconsequential.
I know, but I wanted to see it anyway. But they're all dead. Yes. That's the moral of the story. They're all dead. There's a really interesting conversation between Alicent and Helena, because like Helena's kind of coming unraveled a little bit, I think.
And I mean, understandably so.
Yeah, I mean, Jaehaerys went to the Backstreet Boys reunion tour.
Her last couple of weeks have not been great.
Yeah. I thought it was poignant that she was like, when you think about it, people's kids go to the Backstreet Boys reunion tour all the time. Mm-hmm. We're saying that, but if you're here for the first time, that's a way to get around saying something that YouTube will get very upset at us about. And she even says, like, I bet that the people that went to that funeral procession, like something about like they have as much like
they have more right to grief than I do, essentially.
Yeah, because it would make sense that lowborn people would have a higher incidence of like infant mortality or something. And Alicent is like, you're my favorite. You're the only kid I love. Yeah. So like, I'm really worried about you. And
Alicent, terrible mother, by the way.
Yeah, we've firmly established this.
Yeah. But at least she's doing her best with Helena.
Yeah. Helena just abruptly turns around and is like, I forgive you. Mm-hmm. And I thought for a second Alicent was going to have the gall to be like, for what? And it's like, bitch, you know what?
Yeah.
Because you're a terrible mother.
Also, you're fucking the hand of the king.
Yeah. Well, I'm not mad at her about that necessarily, because like, a woman's got needs. I'm pissed that it's Kristen, because fuck that guy.
Yeah.
But I think what she meant was you're playing the game, and you're playing the game is what got my son killed.
I don't think it's, I think because Alicent doesn't really feel guilt about like politics. She feels a ton of guilt about fucking Crispy.
I think that's a huge problem.
It doesn't say good things about her as a human being, but I'm just saying like her motivations and what she feels the need. Like she wanted to confess to her father in the previous episode that I'm fucking Kristen Cole. And he's like, I don't want to hear it.
I've heard enough shit today.
Like, this is so clearly eating her up inside.
Yeah, which is weird. It's like, girl, your priorities. This is what happens when you get religious, man. Yeah. You start caring about shit that doesn't matter.
But Helena, with her neurodivergent seer powers, can tell that she's feeling very guilty about something and says, I forgive you. Like, I think as a means to just make her feel better.
Just like a blanket pardon.
Yeah.
You think she gets visions of like...
God, I hope not.
Well, she doesn't need visions. She just walked in on him. Yeah. There's a council meeting where, so first of all, Crispy's first day on the job is Hand of the King, shitting his pants. And I thought it was really funny. They start with this angle on him. It's like below looking up at him. Yep. And I've seen a bunch of jokes about how that's like Alicent's angle. And it's like, do you really think that Alicent's the one in that position? Because I'm pretty sure it's always the other way around.
We know she's not.
So I thought it was interesting. So Aegon's made his bros a part of the Kingsguard. Mm-hmm. And they are just there for the shits and giggles, right? Mm-hmm. This is an interesting juxtaposition, because Crispy is like devoted to the Kingsguard. It's his life. Yeah. And these motherfuckers are like, oh, Aegon just wants us to be able to hang out all the time. Yeah. And if we're Kingsguard, it'll be really easy, right? Yeah. And they're just like lounging around. Like he walks up to them and they're like, what's up, man? Like he walks into the council room and isn't challenged by anyone and is like, what the fuck, guys? Like,
we talked about costumes in the spoiler free, but like, he doesn't have like the Hand of the King pin. Mm-hmm. He has like this necklace that goes around his armor. I thought that's a really.
You think he walks into that room and Alicent's like, "Oh, I'm fucking that later." That looks fucking sharp. I don't think she actually thinks that. I think she just guilt fucks him, where she's just feeling bad about herself.
Like a woman has needs.
Yeah. They're planning some war things. And Cole's like, I've had this great idea. And everyone's like, oh, like when he sent Eric to go kill Rhaenyra and that immediately failed. And he's like, well, Eric's an idiot. That's his fault. And they're like, no, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's your plan? And he's going to take a host out to, not to Harrenhal. I think he's going somewhere else.
Somewhere in the Riverlands.
Yeah, to drum up support for something. I don't know. It doesn't matter. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing.
He's like, the Riverlands are the key to everything. Yeah. We secure the Riverlands, we win.
Aegon's like, I'll meet you out there with Dreamfire because I'm a fucking badass. Yeah. Everyone knows.
I want to ride my dragon and light some bitches on fire.
Let the record reflect that everyone in the Seven Kingdoms thinks I, Aegon, am a badass. And he like looks at the maester and he's like, write that the fuck down. And he's like, okay. And everyone's like, that's a bad idea because as it turns out, wars are bad for your health.
People die in wars.
Aemon's kind of the one that like,
it's like, look, bro, like we got this.
We see a lot of Aemon, by the way, in this episode. Way more than I thought. There are a lot of dicks in this episode. Yeah. Fully erect penises with mouths on them.
We'll get there.
And I was like, I don't think you ever see that much in the original Game of Thrones. Because they have floppy dicks all over the place in Game of Thrones. But like actually like that, I was like, damn, that's pornographic. So Cole's gonna take some buddies out and they're gonna
do a war.
So he's about to leave and Allison's like, oh, do you want to meet my asshole brother? And he's like, not particularly, but hi, what's up? And he's like, I'm going with you. And he's like, fuck, no, I don't like this at all. You've got one of those faces. I think I'd just rather not. There's a conversation between him and Allison where he's like, hey, I'm going out to battle. Maybe this is the last time we see each other. At the very least, we'll be away from each other for a while. Can I have your titty napkin? And she's like, yeah, you can have my titty napkin.
Fine.
Yeah. And she gives it to him and he's like, oh, it's nice. Okay, thank you. And so he takes the boys out. He takes a little army out, and there's this fucking banger music cue when they're leaving King's Landing that I thought was really cool. By the way, Raymond Djawadi never misses. Every piece of music he's ever written for any show is just out of this world amazing. So Aegon gets fitted, right? And we're doing this by location, by the way. So like all the shit that happened in King's Landing.
He gets fitted with Aegon the Conqueror's armor.
Yes, because it has to be because he's got the Conqueror's sword. And he's got
his name
and the crown and everything. And he's like, you know what would be fucking cash money is if I also had his armor. And so they're like trying to fit it to him. And they're like, Aegon was a real man. So we actually have to like
tighten this down.
And Larys shows up. Larys is afoot. And and he walks in.
He's like, look, I need to talk to the king. And the king's always like, you can't talk to the king. He's like, look, if I don't talk to the king, he's going to fucking die. So you better fucking let me talk to him.
So he does the thing that he did to Alicent in the first season.
Sniffs her feet?
No, before that.
Oh, right.
At least I hope. They had that conversation earlier in the season where he's got like the plant. And he's like, oh, I like plants and this shouldn't grow here, but
you need to,
he has lots of
prune weeds.
He has a similar conversation where he's like, okay, so this is the rumor on the street. You, in all of your infinite wisdom and bravery, are going to fly out on your badass dragon with your badass armor and going to go to war. Yeah. That's so fucking heroic. Yeah. And Aegon's like, yeah, man. He's like, another thing I heard, this probably isn't true.
Not at all.
But I just thought you should know that some people, not me, are saying that maybe you were tricked by your counselors into going so that your mother, who has, by the way, and I can't stress this enough, amazing feet, can rule in your stead. And he's like, well, I'm easily manipulated, and we're not going out on Sunfire today. He's like, maybe we'll go tomorrow. Not today. Mayhaps not fucking today.
Also, how would you like a job?
Yeah. Also, how would you like to be the master of whispers? And he was like,
I would like that almost as much as I like your mother's feet.
yeah. Can I have both? And so he's like, great. Fucking, cool. I have gone up in the world.
Absolutely. So
I like this bit where like one of his Kingsguard bros are like, oh yeah, we're going out to the bar because my squire has never fucked a woman before, and and yeah, we're gonna show him how to do it and everything. And he's like, but you're sworn to chastity. And they're like, what? When did that happen? And he was like, when you took the oath to the Kingsguard. And they're like,
shit, I think he's actually right.
Oh god, yeah. And then like they laugh about it, and then like the one guy on the right realizes he's not joking. He's like, dude, shut the fuck up. And he's like, oh. Well, in related news, I don't think I can do this job anymore. So he's like, we're gonna go out to the bar, yeah. and Aegon's like, you know what? That sounds really nice.
I deserve a night out.
There's this really neat one shot. We follow this guy named Ulf through
the city streets and into the bar.
And he's one of those guys, right? And you know exactly who I'm talking about. And I know at least one person in college that we went with called Russell.
Yeah.
Oh God, I can't remember what his name is.
I know who you're talking about.
He's one of those guys, and he is not a bad guy, but it's just one of those guys where like everywhere they go, they're shaking hands, and they know everyone, and everyone likes him, and it's a whole thing. And he goes into a bar. We, by the way, see the woman that Aegon assaulted from season 1 is a barmaid here now, and he is spinning some bullshit, I think, where he's like, I am, as it turns out, the
bastard
brother
or whatever.
And I'm a Targaryen, and they're like, you don't look like a Targaryen. He's like, well, fuck you. And he makes a comment about how Rhaenyra
is the true queen or something.
Well, Jace is like the true king, I think, or something like that.
I think he said Rhaenyra.
He says Jaehaerys.
Okay.
Not Jaehaerys. Jaehaerys is Jace's name. His nephew, or whatever. And on cue, Aegon walks in with his bros, and everyone stands up, and he's the first motherfucker to be like, "All hail the king!" And everyone's like, "Yeah, fuck you." Everything you said is a lie. So they get a little sauced, and Aegon takes the squire
to the back room where everyone's fucking.
Yeah, and we see a fully erect dong in somebody's mouth.
Yep.
This is gonna get us hit on YouTube. They're gonna be like, "You can't monetize this."
Who gives a shit?
And I like how just for a second they stop and they look and they're like, damn. And they go to the next one, and there are more people that are doing shit.
Like he rips open the curtain. Oh, this is occupied. Goes on to the next one. Rips it open. Oh, this is occupied. Goes on to the next one. Oh, that's my brother.
That's my naked brother. And it was interesting seeing Aemond like this because in every scene, since we've gotten to know him from this actor, he is cold and calculating and kind of a badass all the time. And it felt voyeuristic where like we see him in a really vulnerable moment.
Yeah. So Aemond is, like you said, he's always very cold and calculating, and like that's the perception of himself that he wants to project to the world.
Sure.
But he has like anyone else, he has emotions and emotional needs and
emotional trauma.
And that's what he goes to this place and this particular prostitute to help process and deal with.
And of course, Aegon can't be gracious about anything.
Also, like Aemond, like being completely naked there is very symbolic of him, like making himself emotionally vulnerable in this place.
Yeah.
So then, of course, Aegon fucking starts laughing at him and says, this whore's occupied. My brother's fucking her. You can't fuck her right now.
It takes him back to the Peak Dread days where he was the one that got picked on by everybody.
Aemon's like, you know what? Fuck it. He stands up, buck-ass naked,
he recovers pretty quick.
Yeah, says, you know what? You want to fuck her? Go ahead. One whore is the same as enough.
Yeah, he just stands up and turns her fucking buck-ass naked. And was like, fuck y'all. Did you guys see my cool sapphire? And then leaves. Yeah. Certainly this is going to come back as some tension.
Aemon is not going to forget about that.
Yeah.
Like Aegon violated the one place where he felt truly comfortable.
Right. Okay. There's some weird shit that happens in this episode too. But it all starts off with Daemon, who is like, you know what? I'm going to go take Harrenhal all by my fucking self. And so he takes Caraxes to Harrenhal. And there's this fucking sweet POV shot of him on the dragon and Caraxes with his fucking long noodle boy neck and shit. And I like how like the people at Harrenhal see the dragon and everyone is like, oh God.
They all shit their pants.
Now, if you're not into the universe a whole bunch, you might not know that Aegon the Conqueror on Balerion the Black Dread, who is much larger than Vhagar, by the way, this huge fucking dragon, burned Harrenhal to the fucking ground. And that's why it is the way it is, right? And so everyone there, of course.
Oh God, it's a fucking dragon. We're all dead.
Yeah. So he like lands, and I like how he just walks in, one man with a sword, and he's like, this will be enough, right? And
I'm Daemon fucking Targaryen.
Yeah. And he walks through the place and you immediately get this like weird haunted house feel from it. Because Harrenhal is famously haunted, right? And he walks around. It's raining inside somehow.
Yes.
Everything's wet.
Because the castle's just that fucked up.
Yeah. He finds a guard. Before the guard, he just knocks him the fuck out. He's like, I'm not dealing with this now. He walks into the one room where there are people.
Yes.
And they're all just sitting there about to eat dinner. And Daemon's like,
I have come to take Harrenhal.
Harrenhal, your Harrenhal are belong to me now. And
the guy gets up out of his chair, walks on over, says, absolutely. Kneels down. I swear fealty to Rhaenyra, the true queen.
Yeah, he barely gets the sentence out, by the way. Harrenhal, like, I'm taking Harrenhal. And he's like, you're taking Harrenhal.
Absolutely.
That's fine.
Cool. It's yours.
Yeah, I do like on his way into the room, he passes the Great Hall, which is where King Jaehaerys has that thing in the first scene of the show where they decide who the new king is, because that takes place at Harrenhal as well. It's important noting that Harrenhal has a vast tactical advantage because it's the largest keep. It's the largest castle in the Seven Kingdoms, and it's like right in the middle of the fucking Riverlands, which is where they want the war to be fought. And so they have him for dinner. And it's really, so they made him this really nice meal and shit. And he's like,
he was just sitting there like, I did not survive 1,000 battles just to be fucking poisoned.
Yeah. Like, I'm not going out like a bitch. Yeah. And they're like, come on.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
That would be a lot of work to poison your peas. And we learned that the guy that's there, who's a strong, does not like Larys very much, calls him Larys Clubfoot, and is like, that we don't like him here.
A little discriminatory, but good instincts.
It's one of those things where I'm sure that's not the reason he hates him. He just brings it up now because you know it hurts him a little bit. And also when he walks into when Daemon walks into this room, there's a woman that just like shows up that he takes special note of, and he's like, who the fuck is that? And she's like, what's up?
Yeah.
So he's in his bedroom later, and it's a nice touch that he's trying to where the rain's coming through the ceiling, he's trying to like put buckets under it and everything, and he's like, well, what, this piece of shit, they couldn't have given me they also mentioned, by the way, that the way that the lord of this, I can't remember his name, they knew that Lionel and the other strong guy were murdered because they were burned to death in a castle where it's impossible to light a fire, pretty much, right? Yeah. Except for the fire that's like behind this guy while he's telling the story. he's got his sword. He's got the door barred with the sword.
Mm-hmm.
And because Damon doesn't trust like that.
Yeah.
And like he sees someone walk up to the door and like manically is like trying to open it and then disappears. And he's like, oh, that's kind of weird. And he grabs Dark Sister, his Valyrian steel sword. And he's like, well, let's go see what the fuck this is. And so he has a little trot through Harrenhal again.
And he hears someone singing.
Yeah. And he's like, what the fuck is that? And he finds a room. And the first actor that played Rhaenyra reprises her role as young Rhaenyra, which is really nice to see her again, right? I can't remember her name. It doesn't matter. And she's literally sewing Jaehaerys' head back onto his body. And she's like, literally all I do is clean up your fucking messes. You're pathetic, pretty much. And he has this look. First of all, he's very taken aback, right? And he's really freaked out, but he also looks like he's got some genuine remorse, and
which would be a first for Damon.
Yeah, and
Damon, he of the crime hoodie.
Yes, and so he snaps out of it, and he's not in that room.
No, he is outside.
He's in front of their Godswood, and he's just like, "What did they put in those?
What the fuck just happened?
Yeah, what the fuck?" And he turns around, and that lady that he saw earlier. Is like, you're gonna die in this place. Bye, and then walks off. Right? And
what the fuck?
And Damon always has like a snappy comeback and shit. He's just like, what is happening?
What?
I have no idea what's happening here. I know that this woman is a character from the book. She's like a witchy person. The conversation reminds me of in the 7th or 8th season of Game of Thrones, on Dragonstone, Melisandre and Varys have a conversation. Both of them were born in Essos. And Varys famously did not like magic or, any of that shit. And Melisandre very much liked it.
Melisandre was like, do you want to see my tits?
Yes. Well, he's a eunuch, so he doesn't.
Oh.
He does not care.
Damn.
Yeah.
The one person that doesn't work. Yeah,
because she'd be like, you want to see my tits? And he'd be like, nah, I'm good.
No.
You see one pair, you've seen them all. And she says to him, because he's like, why don't you run off to Essos? Because things here are going to get real fucking fast. And she's like, oh, I think I would like to, but I have to die in this place like you.
Oh.
And Varys is like, excuse me?
What?
Yeah. And it reminded me of that conversation. And I think they're going to bring Melisandre into the story. I don't think she's not in the book at all, but she's alive because she's famously very old. Yeah. And so since this is a character from the book, probably not Melisandre, but I thought it was really interesting. Really weird, spooky shit happening, right? All right. So at Dragonstone, they bury Eric and Eric. And
poor Eric.
Yeah. They have the whole they hit the theme of the burning mill home where they're like, we got these two groups, no one knows what the fuck they're fighting about anymore. And Rhaenyra is just trying to hold everybody together and everything, and like she's not had a great last couple of months and everything.
Like her advisors want to just get the dragons together and go to war. Yeah. And she's like, dude, if we fight a war with dragons, everybody's going to die.
Yeah.
I don't think you understand how bad this is going to get.
It's interesting that they're going for a really obvious mutually assured destruction allegory from like the Cold War.
Yeah.
Like both sides have nuclear bombs, right? Yeah. And she has some good wisdom where she's like, what is just as scary as dragons is just the thought of a dragon coming to your home and killing you. So we could use that even, and we don't have to kill a bunch of people. She needs to be careful around these fucking guys because her counsel is like, what you should do? You should secrete yourself, which they said that. And I was like, the fuck? Could you have found a creepier fucking way to say that? They're like, why don't you go off to somewhere safe and we'll run the war for you? And Rhaenyra's like, that sounds like fucking treason. And the next word out of your mouth better be, I'm fucking sorry, or I'm going to kill you with my dragon. She gets up and walks away. And fucking Rhaenys stands up and she's like, listen, motherfuckers, that woman first of all, I really like her now. I didn't so much like her before. I really like her now. She's wearing the crown of Jaehaerys, the conciliator. Yes. Who, by the way, reigned for longer than Aegon the Conqueror. So you best watch your fucking step.
Reigned for longer than any Targaryen.
Yes. Because like the one guy, Rhaenyra says something and like the one guy like laughs at her condescendingly. And then like in the background, you see Rhaenys like do a, like,
excuse me?
You did not just fucking laugh at the queen.
Yeah.
And so she has a little word with everyone after Rhaenyra leaves. And she's like, the next person to pull shit like that again, I'm going to cut you. I'm just telling you right now, so you're fairly warned. I'm going to cut you with a knife. Bye.
And if you're especially unlucky, I might feed you to my dragon.
Yeah. Who's one of the bigger dragons in this world, by the way. Rhaenyra realizes that now that their kids are in play, she has a lot of weakness in her children. She has a lot of personal weakness. Yeah. And she knows that it isn't necessarily safe on Dragonstone. And so she tells Rhaena that she's going to take the boys to
Pentos.
Pentos. And she's like, I need you to raise these kids and be good to them, because who the fuck knows what's going to happen here.
I might never see him again.
And if everything here burns, at least there are Targaryens out in the world.
Yeah.
And Rhaena's
not a fan of this.
Nope. She's like, I would like to stay around and fight. And she's like, you don't have a fucking dragon, Rhaena. Like, what?
Well, Rhaena says you're sending me away because I don't have a dragon. And Rhaenyra does not deny this.
Yeah, she's like, that's not true.
Tell you what, I'm going to send you off with like 3 baby dragons and like 4 eggs.
Yeah.
So like you'll have dragons.
Yeah.
In like 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, yeah, we're sending dragons over and one of them can be yours. And she's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. It's like the size of a golf ball, but okay.
Yeah. So she sees Rhaena and the boys off. And they show the dragon eggs. And one of them is going to be Rhaena's, and the other 3 are Daenerys' eggs.
Huh. I remember wanting to ask you about that because I know you're obsessive about all this shit.
Yeah, it's Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion.
Okay, cool.
And let me tell you that Daenerys receives those eggs. By the time she gets them, they're petrified dragon eggs. At her wedding to Khal Drogo that happens in Pentos.
Interesting.
So I think what probably ends up happening is, because you'll see, like, anytime there's a dragon egg in House of the Dragon, they have it so that it's like in a holder with embers and shit.
Yep.
I think if you don't keep them hot, they probably like calcify or whatever. So something bad probably happens there. Okay. So fucking Crispy and his boys are going to Harrenhal. Okay. So first of all, Alicent's brother, Gary, or whatever the fuck his name is, he's like, I do not sleep on the ground.
Yeah, we're gonna go to this inn. We're gonna drink some beer. We're gonna fuck some whores. It'll be great.
I don't know what you think you're doing out here, but I sleep in comfort, and we need to be within 2 miles of an inn at all times. And Cole's like, oh God, you're just like your sister, you motherfucker. And Cole has a realization, like the clouds kind of pass in front of and they realize they're out in the middle of nowhere with no cover. And he's like, oh my God,
we need to get out of here.
And then like over his shoulder, because meanwhile, Bela is running patrols to see if there are any armies leaving King's Landing.
Yep.
And up in the sky, she's on her dragon moon dancer, who has a little mohawk. He's adorable. Yeah. Sees the light reflecting off their armor.
It's like, oh.
And she's like, oh, is that an army down there?
Excuse me?
Now, Rhaenyra told her not to engage, right? So she's like, okay, I won't engage, but I will fly at them at breakneck speed to scare the shit out of them. They will shit their pants. And so she fucking dives, right? And Cole is like, oh my God, that's fuck,
let's go.
Yeah.
Get in the woods.
They start sprinting for the woods, and Bela's like, oh, they're not going to make it, I don't think.
Nope.
And they just make it.
Yeah.
They get in the tree line and she does this.
Bela has to pull up hard.
The dragon fight in this looked really good. Like it's, you know how like the dragon stuff in season 1 looked kind of crunchy and
it was okay.
Yeah. It's because they were doing it during COVID and it just didn't look very good. That looked really fucking good. Gary has learned his lesson, by the way.
He's like, okay, Captain Cole, whatever you say goes.
And like, yeah, I like how it goes like, no ends, you fucking moron. Like, what the fuck's wrong with you? So Bela returns to Dragonstone, and it turns out that even though Damon has gone away from Dragonstone, that Dragonstone kind of still has a Damon. Because Bela, she's like, there was an army, by the way, and it was led by Crispy. And
she's like, how did you know?
Yeah, how do you know it was Crispy? You were supposed to be like doing recon. And she's like,
yeah, I might have dive bombed him a little bit.
I got close enough to smack his ass. Let me just say that. And she was like, but I told you not to engage. She's like, to be fair,
I didn't engage.
There
was no fire.
Yeah. There's no fight or anything.
She is so her father's daughter.
I know. It's so good. She looks like a badass on that dragon too. That actor in the behind the scenes, she had the time of her life because they shoot her on a buck. Like the saddle is real, but like obviously the rest of it isn't because dragons don't exist, unfortunately. That's why we can't have nice things. But she was thrilled to do those scenes. She thought it was really neat. Okay. There's a conversation between Rhaenyra and Mysaria. And Rhaenyra's like, so I set you free and you came back.
So it starts with Mysaria out on like a porch watching a dragon flying around.
Yeah, it's sea smoke, by the way. That's the gay one. Yes.
Yeah.
Why can't I remember his name right now? Laenor,
right.
Yeah. Because apparently sea smoke is like
just cruising around.
Well, he's uneasy. He's bored or he's like unsettled. And Rhaenyra was like, so I set you free and you came back to warn me about Eric. And she's like, which one was Eric? And she's like, well, they both were. I don't
don't worry about it. The point is, you kind of saved my life.
Like, why? And Mysaria's like, you're gonna think I'm crazy, but you're the only one that's not a fucking monster, I don't think. Like, based on what I know of all these parties that I've observed, you are by far the least worst. In fact, you might actually be an all right person.
You're the one who is least of an asshole.
Yeah. Like, I went to Otto Hightower and I was like, here's an idea. Let's not have children in fighting pins. And then he tried to burn me alive.
All right, that happened.
Yeah. And so you didn't do that. And so far, that's like you're on my ranking.
It's a low bar to clear, but you cleared it.
Yeah. And so she's like, okay, that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
So, like, what are we doing here? What is this? And Mysaria's like, okay, so first and foremost, I would very much like to kill Otto Hightower because he's a dick. But also, like, there are changes that need to be made. And you kind of seem like the person that would do that. So I think I'm on your side.
You want to give me a job?
Yeah. And she was like, well, you know shit about things that you shouldn't know about.
Yeah.
So Master of Whispers.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. By the way, the first duty of your job. What does Allison do in her day to day?
Yeah.
And Mysaria's like, well, she writes a Kristen's face at like 6 a.m. And then she does it again at 8. And I think she has there's a small council meeting in there.
She like hangs out with Helena for like 5 minutes, tries to pretend Aegon and Aemon don't exist.
Like averts her gaze away from them. These are not children of mine.
And I guess every so often she goes out to the church to pray for the dead and light the candle and do all that shit.
So there's also this other thing we have to put in there. So Allison sent Rhaenyra a letter that was like, sorry about your dead son.
Yeah.
And Rhaenyra didn't read it because she was, she was grieving and she didn't want to hear it, and while Rhaenyra is grieving the absence of her sons, she's cleaning up their toys and she finds the raven that that she's
letter and reads it this time.
I think this happens before she talks to Mysaria. So she's like, okay, let's play out a hypothetical. Mm-hmm. Let's say I want to talk to Alicent, and Mysari's like, easy. We'll slip her a note,
send her a letter,
and then we can do a meeting. And she's like no. that won't work. And I'll tell you why. Because if I got that note, I'd be like, fuck off, no way, right? Mm-hmm. So what else you got? And she's like, well, she's the Queen Dowager, and a lot of people, especially Kristen Cole, watch her. And Laris.
It's creepy how much Kristen Cole and Laris watch her.
Yeah, like you can't talk to Alicent because of Crispy. You can't talk to Alicent's feet because of Laris. Like this is just well known in the kingdom, right? Mm-hmm. And so she's like, okay, I need you to figure out a way. And Mysari's like, actually, you know, an interesting thing is that when you don't look like royalty, no one gives a fuck about you. Mm-hmm. And then Rhaenyra has this moment where she's like, I know this actually, because in the first season,
she went to the whorehouse with Daemon.
Yeah, it dressed up like a boy, and no one knew who she was. And she's like, "That's a fucking good idea."
Shit, here we go.
And Mysari's like, "Actually, you know what else she does a lot? She gets really guilty about writing Crispy's face, and then she goes to church to pray for it, or pray about it." Mm-hmm. And they both have a look, and you see this light bulb turn on, right?
That's what we're doing.
And the next shot is them sailing to King's Landing, right? Now, I will remind you, or I'll tell you, that this entire sequence does not happen in the book. And I know that like some fans are upset about it. I think it's brilliant. I think it's absolutely brilliant. And we'll talk about the implication here in a second. Rhaenyra is doing a sister act.
Is she dressed up as a nun?
She's a septa, but she's a nun. She got her like Kingsguard guy with her who's like a priest or whatever. And they walk through the King's Landing. No one gives them a second glance. Yeah. They pull up to the sept, which is not the great sept of Baelor, by the way. It hasn't been built yet.
It's just
a regular sept.
Like they walk up, they see fucking Alicent and her replacement Kingsguard now that Kristen's out of town.
Who are the dumbasses, I think? Yeah. Which I just realized is another great way for them to be like, oh, this is how this was able to happen. It's because she's got fucking Dumb and Dumber, Yeah. So like her Kingsguard guy is like, okay, go in and do your thing. I'm going to go like diddle some boys for the part. Yeah. And like, fucks up. And like he sits on, like he looks around. He's like, all right, just in case anyone sees me, here's my Bible. And he like opens it and like makes a big show out of reading it and shit. And Rhaenyra goes into the sept where as children, she and Alicent prayed to the mother. Yep. And Alicent is there with her candles and shit. And Rhaenyra kneels down next to her, and this realization where like Alicent's not making eye contact because Alicent's like, God, get it. I'm trying to pray, get a fucking clue. Mm-hmm. And then like she sits down and she's like, the fuck is this bitch? And she looks over and she realizes it's Rhaenyra and she's like, and Rhaenyra has a knife. Yeah. Like pulls out a knife and grabs her. And
she's like, fucking calm down.
Yeah. Alicent's like, by the way, Alicent, I don't think Alicent's scared at all. I think she actually knows.
I think she's more startled than she's scared.
And basically, Alicent's like, so what happens here? You stab me and then you get killed? And she's like, I'll be honest, I haven't thought it out that far.
I just knew I needed to talk to you.
Yeah. I'm really surprised they made it this far. I'm not going to lie.
Like, can we not have a war? Because like that's going to kill a lot of people and it's not going to be so great. Like, can we not do this?
Yeah. And
Alicent's like,
they start squabbling over the thing where she like Rhaenyra's like, it's my fucking throne. And Alicent's like, no, the fuck it's not. Like your father changed his mind. Yep. And she's like, you're a fucking liar. And she's like, I am at times cruel, but I'm never untrue. And then Rhaenyra's like, actually, that makes sense because that's actually true about her, right?
So as long as you're not lying, can you tell me, what he said?
What exactly did he say?
The precise words he used?
And she was like, he said Aegon's name. Like he was on his deathbed. He was high as fuck on milk of the poppy. He was dying. He said Aegon's name. And then he said that Aegon was the prince that was promised or whatever.
To unite the kingdoms.
And Rhaenyra is like,
Wait.
Is that like he used those exact words?
That's an exact quote?
Yeah. And she's like, yeah, but it's a fucking big deal. And she's like, Jesus fucking Christ.
He told
Allison.
you about the Song of Ice and Fire?
Yeah, I like that. She's like, she told you about like the Song of Ice and Fire. And she's like,
the fuck?
She has this look like, the what now? And
Rhaenyra's like, shit, he didn't tell you.
Yeah. So,
oh God.
This was a story he used to tell about Aegon the Conqueror. You stupid bitch. Pretty much. And Allison's like, oh.
Well, regardless, we're a little bit too late for that.
Yeah.
Like,
and Allison doubles down and was like, it wasn't a mistake. That's not what happened. But you know that she knows that it's.
I don't know that she does.
I think she does. I know she does because it's what the showrunner said in the behind the scenes. So it's easy for me to be like, oh, I know. But she, like, the confusion was cleared in this scene between the two characters. Mm-hmm. And I think it's an interesting, they both walk away from the scene enormously changed, but nothing changes.
Yep.
Which I think is really neat, right? So Rhaenyra now knows for sure that she is righteous, that she's doing the right thing. And that not only is it her throne by right, but it is her job to protect the realm from death.
Yep.
Alicent just realized that her entire life is a lie. And that because she said in her conversation with Rhaenyra, she says the words, you know what Aegon is, right? Mm-hmm. So she's like, I mean, did.
She knows Aegon is incredibly fucked up.
Yeah.
Like from the very first time.
She's like, I'm the reason why.
Yeah, like she walked in season 1 and saw him jerking off over the city. Like she knows
on the small folk. Yeah. So they both, like, Rhaenyra is emboldened, and she knows that what she's doing is right. Alicent can't turn back. I mean, it's like it. What are you going to do now? Even if she went and told Aegon, this was a mistake. We need to surrender or whatever.
Yeah. Aegon isn't having it.
Yeah, no, like Cole is the hand. Like no one would let this happen now.
So Aegon lost his son and heir. He is furious. He wants blood.
Yeah.
Cole fucking hates Rhaenyra. He's not gonna back down.
Yeah.
Aemond has his own trauma, but he's like, he knows that Jaehaerys, whatever the kid's name was killed because they couldn't find him.
Yeah.
Like
I like that they clear the air about that, by the way. Where I think both of them walk away from that believing that the other one didn't have that kid killed. So I think Rhaenyra is like, okay, Alicent.
Rhaenyra's like, look, I didn't order that. That was all Daemon.
Yeah, and Alicent's like, I know, I didn't do that. That was all fucking Aemond.
Yeah. And
they're like, okay, well, that's nice to know at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, why do we both have blonde, long-haired psychopaths?
Yeah. Why is everyone named Aegon?
Fucking Targaryens, like, this would all be so much simpler if they gave everyone different names.
You know what's really funny is
you're Al, you're Bob, you're Charlie,
Steve.
You're Dave.
Yeah,
exactly.
One of Rhaenyra's kids is named Aegon too, just to add another layer of confusion.
Fucking Targaryens, dude.
Aegon the Younger, as he was called. I happen to know from the look at next week's episode is a huge battle.
Okay,
and
I presume Harrenhal.
Rook's Rest.
Okay.
Which I've been able to live in this weird state of being where I know certain things about the book, but they're not spoiled for me.
Okay.
So like I know that Rook's Rest is a big deal.
Okay.
And I know that something really bad is going to happen to someone.
Okay.
I think it's probably going to be Rhaenys, by the way, because there was that scene with her and Corlys.
Yeah,
because they're just having their best life.
Yeah,
like in the last episode, we kind of forgot to mention it. Like, first of all, I'm really happy for her that her and Corlys are still fucking.
Yeah,
right. Like, there's a whole scene with them in bed.
They are probably the happiest couple in this entire show.
Or at least Corlys is like, you know.
Yeah.
And she brings him a fucking picnic in this one. And I like how, because she's like, hey, let's make Reyna the heir to Driftmark. And he's like, or we just have more kids. And she's like, how old do you think I am? Like, also, we're at war.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck do you think is going to happen?
Well, Corliss's exact objection is that she doesn't know anything about boats, and she's like, neither does your fucking 6-year-old kid who is right now your heir.
Neither did Luke.
Yeah.
Luke would blow chunks if he got on a boat.
None of them know anything about boats.
Yeah, no one's gonna be the sailor you are, Corliss.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus, calm the fuck down. Yeah, it's like I said, I've not read the book, but I recognize a screenwriting trick when I see it, and they are making us want to fall in love with Rhaenys. And in Game of Thrones, that's a red fucking flag, because the people you fall in love with are the ones that die.
I'm sad now.
Yeah. I'm trying to prepare myself. I think I'm more sad that Meleys might die, because those dragons are precious to me. I love them. I even love Vhagar.
You love dragons more than you love people.
Yeah. Dragons and dogs. Yeah, that checks. Yeah. All right, let's talk about
the boys.
The boys for a few minutes.
Okay.
That show where all of a sudden, why not? There are flying sheep. Only in the boys.
Are we just going into spoilers?
Yeah, we've been here for a couple of hours.
So like, there's 3 big plot lines here. First one is Vought's D23.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, this is so fucking hilarious, because they do the
they have a visual gag where like the next 18 phases of the VCU, and like if you pause and look, there's a bunch of movies that like have Avengers references and X-Men references, and like Firecracker has 4 movies that are all some variant of like God Help Me, God Save America,
God's Not Dead, or whatever. Yeah,
there's a bunch of Tech Knight movies.
They're probably a whole reference. Yeah. That was, I laughed really hard.
Yeah,
because it was,
like they make fun of everyone.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit. They'll make fun of Disney.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Tech Knight even he does a little talk.
Yep.
And
he mentions holes.
Yeah, a bunch, because that's what he does. The other thing is, so Huey and his dad, right? So like at the last of the end of the
previous episode, Huey's mom found the compound V and put it into his dad's IV, and
which, by the way, we're just glossing over the fact that she did that.
Yeah,
because
how did she know what it was?
She even said in this episode, she's like, "Well, I thought that you want me to give him the compound V," and like my first question was, "How did you know what compound V is?"
Yeah,
or that it was compound V. Did I miss something where he was like, "This is compound V"? It could maybe save him if you put it in his IV.
So
okay,
there's something weird going on there.
Yeah, or it might just be a plot hole.
Yeah. Like, and for like the first half of the episode, things are okay. Like Huey's dad is
his normal stuff. Yeah.
And then he starts like
Simon Pegg, by the way, is a great actor. I love her. Yeah.
Then his dad starts forgetting things, and like anyone who's had a parent or a grandparent with Alzheimer's just knows that this sucks so much.
Yeah, both my grandparents on my dad's side died from Alzheimer's, or not from Alzheimer's, but had Alzheimer's when they died. Yeah,
and it's just awful to see that this person that you knew become something else.
Yeah. My grandfather, like toward the last few months of his life, thought I was my uncle. He'd call me Brian all the time, and I was just like, "Oh, okay,
whatever." So this culminates with his dad discovering his powers, which is the sort of
like phasing through matter.
Yeah, phasing through matter,
like the Flash from.
Well, I was gonna say Shadowcat from the X-Men, because that's her thing.
Oh, I don't know who that is.
I don't know if you remember. Elliot Page played her in X3. It's the one with I'm the Juggernaut, bitch. Don't worry about it.
Okay, no, I know that line.
Yeah. The one that
no, that's the bad one, right? Because
so that scene where Juggernaut is like crashing through walls, chasing after someone who's running through them. That's what I'm.
Oh, okay, all right.
Anyway,
that was a shit movie, Chris. That was a really shitty movie.
It was because this is the boys. Huey's dad discovers he has these phasing powers by reaching into a doctor's chest and pulling out his heart.
Yeah,
and then like. Later on, when he's running through walls, he like stops in the middle of this guy's hospital bed, and like
it's gross.
Yeah,
because it's the boys. That's what you do.
So
yeah, his problem is that he like his mind is in a different time period where he hasn't reconciled with his wife that abandoned them. Yep. And so she's there, but he doesn't realize that she's like...
And he thinks Huey is like 7 years old.
Right. And so he's real pissed at her and is like, I'm going to go full villain.
And eventually this all culminates with Huey getting through to him and his dad realizing what he's done. Mm-hmm. And Huey gives his dad a lethal injection.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things where this feels a little bit like they brought Simon Pegg back in just to kill him.
Which, fair enough, because he acted the hell out of this.
Yeah, episode. Right. It's like I think with maybe lesser actors, it would have been like, eh. But it was really like, we haven't really spent that much time with Simon Pegg since like season 1.
As shitty as it feels, that this whole plot line is really more about Huey than anything.
And maybe his mom.
Yeah.
Because who the fuck knows what's going on with her.
But like, his dad even says, like Huey says, you gave her power of attorney. And his dad says, well, yeah, because if like, I don't want to be a vegetable. So if I was going to be like that, like I knew you weren't going to pull the plug because you have a giant fucking heart.
Yeah.
And at the end, it's Huey who realizes that the only way to end this is for his dad to die.
Yeah, it was very well executed.
Yes.
I just as a plot line, I was just like, this kind of came out of nowhere. Mm-hmm.
Then plot line 3 is the gang gets fucking Giancarlo Esposito out of prison, says, we need your daughter has the soup killing virus from Godolkin University.
Oh yeah, that happens during the D23 thing, right?
Yep. Where they fucking what's his name and what's her name come out on stage.
I can't remember their names either. Yeah.
Kate and not Golden Boy. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Anyway, so they go up to Giancarlo Esposito's farm, which is this fancy sprawling estate. And,
of course it is.
Yeah. And they get there and they realize they're not the first ones here. So they go down to the basement, which has been turned into this infectious diseases lab.
I like the gag where he was like, he says something about like I'm gone for like,
yeah. So they get down there and then they see all these animals that have been injected with Compound V. And who should come down the stairs but fucking Victoria Newman?
Yeah.
And Giancarlo Esposito is like, yeah, I see you've turned my game room into an infectious diseases lab.
Again? God damn it. Yeah.
So like he's the one who convinces the boys and Newman to work together to figure out what's going on here and find the virus.
Yeah, so like obviously Billy wants it to kill all the soups. Mm-hmm. I think Victoria wants it so Billy doesn't have it.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Because I think at this point she knows everyone's trying to kill her.
Yeah. So they go walking around trying to figure out where it is, and there's some fun interactions. Like Starlight ends up punching Newman in the face, which is just kind of what she deserves.
Yeah.
And then they discover the flying sheep. So like there's this angry bull that confronts them when they're walking between two pastures. And then the sheep come out and just fucking...
Yeah, you know what that moment reminded me of? Have you seen Jurassic World, like the first one?
I think so.
Where they...
it's the one where Chris Pratt does the thing with his hands and the raptors all obey him.
Yeah, and they do this thing where they put out a great white shark as bait for something to attract something much larger.
Yeah.
It was like that, where it was like this... It's like this big terrifying thing, but then the thing that eats it is like not really, it's like the opposite, like these like literal flying sheep. It's like, what kind of high do you have to be in the writer's room of this show and just being like, you know what, this show has not had to date flying sheep with superpowers.
I haven't read the comics, but it wouldn't surprise me if Garth Ennis came up with it. The dude who wrote the graphic novel.
I wonder if this is in, because I know at this point in the show, I think they've deviated quite a bit.
They have, but anyway, so they all run into the barn and they find Victoria Newman's fucking infectious diseases guy / boyfriend.
Lover, at the very least.
Giancarlo Esposito gets real pissy. He's like, he deflowered my daughter.
Yeah.
And she's like, I was 20 and I'd already been deflowered. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that was really awkward actually to hear.
Yeah.
I don't ever need to hear him say the word deflower.
So they come up with this plan where like they have this corpse. So they're going to inject the soup-killing virus into the corpse, like the only dose of it they have.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to throw the corpse out there, have the sheep attack it, and they'll get the disease and die. And it works out. And Giancarlo Esposito is about to go back to prison, but Victoria Newman explodes the head of his driver and opens the door and gets him out.
Yeah.
So the boys are really back at square one here. I guess the last scene of this episode is Homelander has called the Seven into their office at the top of Vought Tower, and they bring in not Tucker Carlson, and Sister Sage says, "Yeah, I found the leak." Winks like very obviously at A-Train, and Homelander's like, "Okay, we're not going to be superheroes anymore. We are going to be vengeful gods. So this man has betrayed us. Let's see some fucking vengeance."
Yeah,
and they kill Tucker Carlson.
Yeah. I have no idea where that's going.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know, Homelander is just kind of a wild card all over the place. Like, who the fuck knows? The other thing, it seems like maybe Ryan...
Yeah, Ryan is kind of wavering back and forth. Because there's this part where they're backstage at D23, and Ryan sees the asshole director, like, harassing his... The
Zack Snyder of this.
Yeah. Like, Zack Snyder harassing his female assistant. And Ryan's like, "I think you should apologize to her." Like, he asks the assistant, "Is he bothering you?" And she's like, "Yeah, kind of." And he's like, "You should apologize to her." He's like, "I'm sorry."
And it just devolves into her beating the shit out of him. Yeah. And he seems to be enjoying it quite a bit.
I don't know, because like before this, he tells Homelander, "I want to be a hero. I want to help people."
Yeah.
I don't know if he thinks he's doing the right thing or if he's just enjoying watching these two humans, dance while he pulls their strings. Because I know which one Homelander is rooting for.
Oh, sure, yeah. This obviously exists to create some, what's the word I'm trying to think of? This is to create some uncertainty with Billy, where if he were to find out that Ryan had this in him, that maybe his original decision about just drugging him and taking him somewhere, So I think that Ryan will do enough that maybe they have to wonder if it's justified just taking him down.
Yeah.
Which will create a lot of conflict. So, all right. I think we've spoken quite enough.
Yep.
Looking forward, tomorrow. What is tomorrow? Thursday? Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Tomorrow's 4th of July. Happy Independence Day to my fellow Americans. Happy Canada Day a couple days ago if you're Canadian, I guess.
Yeah, I guess they're having an election tomorrow in Europe or in the UK.
UK, yep. Yeah. If you live in the UK, go vote. Anyone but conservatives.
Yeah.
Because they suck.
Fuck the Tories.
Oh, yeah. Not Reform Party. Not the fucking far right dickheads.
Yeah.
Not that I would condescend to tell you what to do with your vote and your electoral system, but don't vote for anyone.
Don't be like us.
Please, I'm fucking begging you.
We're a cautionary tale for the world. So there may be Battlefront tomorrow. I don't know. It depends on if the guys are around for it. Probably almost certainly on Friday and Saturday. And then I think Sunday I think we're going to try to do Among Us.
Okay.
It's just a regular like a random non-Star Wars thing.
Yep.
And then next week, Wednesday, a week from today, obviously will be the next episode of the Jedi Enclave Presents. This is Podcasting Podcast.
Where we'll talk about all the same shit one more time because there's new episodes.
So, or Feet of the Queen instead of Master of Whispers. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see you guys.
Hand of the King, Feet of the Queen. I see what you did there.
Yeah, that works out quite a bit. Also, I think the same thing is happening.
Oh boy.
As before. Oh no, it's not.
Okay.
I see the problem is okay. Anyway,
so
let's see you guys later.
Bye
Bye.